Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to All Things Division 3 Soccer with Simple Coach and Jackie. I am Simple Coach. And that there, still kicking. It's Jackie, sleeping a lot more, getting up there in age. Yeah, but she's still with it. Really do appreciate you taking time to watch this edition of Around D3. I don't know if it's this year compared to past years. I find myself really wishing for the season to begin. Done a lot of work, as I sort of detailed over the last, since the past season, around the website and some different things I'm trying to work on. And then obviously I got this JOB that is not FUN. So that keeps me busy. But my mind is already thinking about how fast can August get here so that we could start keeping an eye on teams, and then obviously the kickoff weekend where we actually get to watch some games. Really itching to watch some games, that's for sure. So but I've been doing some yard work, and in that yard work I've been thinking about things. Wow, what is about 2024 that's going to make it interesting? And I was surprised. There's a lot of things in Division 3 soccer that, some storylines, is that what they call them, that are going to make for a really interesting 2024. I haven't done this exercise in the past, but going through it, I'm like, wow, there's a lot of things to be keeping my eyes on and keeping track of, and coaches and teams to follow, just because there seems to be some really interesting changes that have happened this year across the board. So, on this episode of Around D3, I am going to run down my list of 16 things that came to mind. Like, wow, these are interesting storylines. So here we go. Let's kick it off. All right. So if you're a Patreon member, you've seen some of this already in a post I made last week, but you're getting a sneak preview of this list because you guys are awesome and I appreciate the support. And then I will be releasing it to YouTube and then putting something on d3soccer.fans. I will say that list that I made a week ago is not complete because I ended up adding some things that popped into my mind. Like, oh my gosh, I should be paying attention to that. So hope you enjoy. Thanks again. You guys are fantastic. But hope you enjoy the sneak preview. Okay. So the first one that popped to mind, just because I had a conversation maybe a week before that I thought was really interesting, or 2 weeks before, is count me as someone who is very interested to watch former Washington and Lee men's coach Mike Singleton take over at Goucher College. And maybe it's not just a 2024 story. Maybe this is definitely over the next few years. But I am interested in seeing the energy and changes and what becomes of Goucher in a pretty competitive landmark conference, right? I think you could say the other teams have been put on notice. Like I said, maybe not this year, but definitely in the next couple of years. So that's my first one. Next up, speaking of Washington and Lee, they still don't have a coach, or at least I haven't seen that it's been announced. So I'm interested to see that happen. What happens to Washington and Lee, and that's successful and one of the best programs in the country, without a doubt, and how they respond to losing their coach and who takes over the reins there. Number 3, after another coaching change, after 17 years at Catholic University, Coach Travis Beecham has resigned and will be replaced by Connor Keenan, who was the head men's coach at King's College in PA. Here, I don't know why, but I've always expected a little bit more from Catholic, so I'm wondering if the coaching change is not that next step in their evolution to become a real dominant force in the region. Speaking of dominant forces out in Ohio, Alyssa Johnson, who is the former women's coach at Bethany College, is taking over at Case. And Case has been in rarefied air for the last few seasons. So I'm just curious, will the tradition continue? Will Case be one of the top programs in the country? Can it maintain that level? And speaking of levels, another one, Travis Wall at Kenyon College, year 2. He came in last season, and sometime, if I recall, like the first week in August. So he really didn't have a, a lot of time. Managed to pull out a pretty incredible year. And now I'm just waiting to see. I have a feeling like this year could be really special for Kenyon. Um, I'm sure Paul Newman would agree. And then, of course, I got to go out west. Another story that's I find interesting to follow is, my national coach of the year, my self-professed national coach of the year, Duncan Gillis, is going to be in his 3rd year at Caltech. In that time, he led the program in 2023 to its best season ever by a huge margin. I think they won 4 games was the most they won. I think they won 7 this year, 8, I can't remember. But really interested to see where he takes Caltech this upcoming year. I'm starting to see all the recruits coming in, who's coming, who's going. Don't know the players, but he's clearly doing his recruiting work. I mentioned Catholic earlier. I am count me curious as to what happens at Ursinus College with new head men's coach Colin Klingman. He was at Catholic Binghamton. His whole family are Ursinus, I think, alums. The head men's coach is his brother. So big pedigree around Ursinus. So I'm actually wondering, does his appointment, will there be some consistency in the coach's office that hasn't had over the last few years? So another one that I'm keeping track of, after an incredible season in 2023, I'm curious to see if head coach Rod LaFleur and the Occidental men, who I was so impressed with, that follow up on last year's run. Can they go? Can they get to the semis? That's a question to be had. Here's one on the ladies' side. Wash U was quite possibly, if you just watch them, one of, if not the best women's team in the country the way they played. And they only lost twice. One in the one in their conference tournament championship, and then in the 2023 final to Cal Lutheran. And I'm wondering, do they still have the squad? Do they still have the ambition to get back to the big show? Because I think they're that good. Another item, been asking this for a while. With their TCNJ men and women's teams, the men's team has fallen off the radar a little bit, and the women's team has had a number of coaching changes since Joe Russo retired a few years back. So, especially on the women's side, they have everything going for them, and I'm just wondering if this is the year where they really, break out of that and start moving forward into the future. Speaking of future, Coach Philip Croft at Chicago is in his 2nd year, and it's been 2 years since the men won the national championship. So I'm just wondering, is this the year where they do a repeat? They have the talent, clearly, and they have the way they play is outstanding. So I'm just wondering if they get to the big dance again. Another item, I guess it's the whole landmark seems to be due for some change in 2024. There's 4 coaching changes that happened. Mentioned Catholic, Lycoming is looking for a new coach. Scranton has just hired a new coach, and E-Town with a new coach. Um, and then obviously on the women's side, Coach Singleton at Goucher. So a lot of movement and will make for some interesting things coming into the 2024 season. Now, another item that I've been talking about for a while is like I, I, I in 2023, I'll just say the best. I think the best two of the best teams were public colleges, universities, and I think are close to a level where you could tap them to be potential national champions, and that belongs to Cortland State and Montclair State. Um, Coach Axel at Cortland has been really taking them to new heights every year, and Montclair State has an incredible roster and depth and some of the best talent in Division Three, including this past year's Division Three Player of the Year and leading scorer in the nation, Amir Lukovic. Cortland, I think, is close. Montclair, I go back and forth. They have all the talent. I just don't. I just haven't seen them become that great team, and I keep thinking this is the year. So, Amir Lukovic will be a senior, and I'm sure they have a ton more talent on the bench. But I'll be interested to see how that develops. Another interesting storyline out in Ohio, men's program head men's coach Corey Kirk, formerly at Muskingum, has taken over at Capital University. And Capital is always on that sort of threshold of being great. So I'm curious to see how it goes from there. And then I'll just say very broadly, because I mentioned Case and obviously Capital, but speaking of Ohio, I think in the Buckeye State there could be a real humdinger in 2024. I mentioned Kenyon, I mentioned Capital, but don't forget, you also have Ohio Wesleyan out there, that NCAC powerhouse, and then holy smokes, John Carroll, right? And then if that wasn't enough, you got Coach Brandon Bianco's Denison University that has just been getting better every year. And then just an hour away, I think it's like an hour, maybe 2 hours from Denison, you have Ohio Northern, which shocked everyone, or at least shocked me, by beating Messiah in the NCAA tournament. And if that's not enough, well, Otterbein is another one that can, compete not only for the conference but also for in the NCAA's. And then obviously under Coach Carter Poe, Case Western Reserve, what a fantastic program he has running there. And then finally, the best of the bunch, of course, at least in my heart and in my mind, is a powerful Mount Union Purple Raiders, right? And you could, I might be able to spend the season just watching games of these programs. I mean, they're that good. So it's just going to be interesting to see who obviously who takes the NCAC, and then who battles it out for the OAC. And you got programs a little bit of a down year, but Wilmington, oh my gosh, right? Like what a program, and Wittenberg, right? College of Worcester is always like that Lego block on the floor that somebody is bound to step on in bare feet. So anyhow, those are the team and the things that just sort of literally just popped into my head. But there's one last one that I thought was really interesting. And this is not a team. This is about the whole NCAA tournament. So, and I thought I wouldn't include it, but I'd be remiss if I didn't, because I do think this is going to be a consequential year in the NCAA tournament. And that is, I'm kind of intrigued to see the brave new world that our AI overlords at Pairwise will bring to the NCAA rankings and the tournament picture. There has been, since my conversation with Coach Bianco and Coach Singleton, where we talked a little bit about it, because Washington and Lee would not have made the tournament based on their pairwise selection. We still have less information than we did before the announcement. Nobody is talking. I've dug around, so I don't know. I'm sure on the hockey side they seem to have it down pat, but there's nothing coming on about the other sports and soccer in particular. So could make for a very shocking 2024 NCAA tournament. So these are just a couple of some of the storylines that popped into my head, and as I'm talking here and doing this video, I've thought of a bunch more. Like, rumor has it that Messiah might have like a little bit of a down year. They lost some key players, and so how are they going to be? And I mean, it's keep going. Is Trinity going to have a year, right, in Texas? And can Connecticut College and Tufts, can they take it to where they're capable of? They have the talent, older squads, and so anyhow, limitless. Who says there's nothing fun to follow in Division III? All right, so the season can't come soon enough, as you can tell. There's so many great things to be watching, and now we go through the slow months of summer before we actually get to see the games kick off. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of Around D3. If you have other thoughts as to some of the interesting storylines out there, by all means, down below, comment down below, shoot me an email. I put all of this on d3soccer.fans as well, so you could read through. I'm actually thinking of making another list as these ideas come to my mind, and maybe another video. So, all right. I hope you have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. Thank you very much for your support, Patreon members. You guys rock. And hopefully we'll see each other again soon.